Hello, everybody, and welcome to the final match reaction stream with LFC Transfer Room of the 2023-2024 season. And as difficult as it is to say, the Jürgen Klopp era. But thank you, everybody, so much for joining us. A little bit of housekeeping before we jump into Everton and we all start crying and hugging each other and spilling tears down our faces. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure you have your notifications on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out at all. And also, if you're watching over on Twitter or X, as it is at the moment, please make sure to jump over to our YouTube channel where you can get involved in the chat and you can get involved by liking and subscribing as well. Plenty more content that will be coming over the summer. Just because the season finishes doesn't mean that we'll be finishing, but what you can expect is an awful lot more transfer talk over the summer, and we will be having lots of that, especially with the new manager coming in, which we can't wait for. But before what we get into today is we'll do our end of season awards, essentially. So we ran a poll both internally and externally on Twitter. We ran a poll with ourselves in the group, see who we would have made as the player of the season, the young player of the season, and who got the goal of the season. And then we also ran it with yourselves on Twitter of who was the player of the season, the goal of the season, and who was the young player of the season. Some interesting numbers came back. Thousands of people voted on it, so it was great to see that much numbers on it. But we'll turn it over essentially to my panel mates, and then I'll come back and say how I felt about today and the impact that Jürgen Klopp has had on us as fans and us as a team. But Stu, I'll throw it over to yourself first.
All right.
How was today, and if you could sum it up in one sentence, how would you sum it up?
Utterly mixed emotions. I'd put it. That's the only way to describe it, really. It's obviously we've known about it for quite a while, and I'm not trying to sort of put him up on a pedestal, but you look at some of the statistics that he's produced in his time, 9 years of being at the club. He's got the best win percentage out of any manager that's managed the club. And that's ahead of the likes of Shankly, who, again, legendary status at the club. And he's got a better win percentage than him. Yeah, I mean, I've watched quite a few of the Klopp videos. I know a few of the guys haven't. I've watched quite a few of the interviews. And I kind of agree with sort of what he says in, okay, we've only won one Premier League title, but we came so damn close 2-3 times. Champions League finals, 3 of them. We only won one, but still 3 Champions League finals, plus the other bits of silverware that rolled in with it. And over that time, if I could be transported back in time to my earlier self when Klopp just signed, and I got told that's what the club are going to win over the next 8-9 years, with a couple of down moments as well, I'd snap your hand off. Any Liverpool fan would have, because at the end of the day, he's right in what he says. The club wasn't in a good position. FSG had just come in a couple of years beforehand, and things weren't going right. The direction of the club wasn't going right, and a lot of that is down to him and his backroom staff. He molded that vision for the club to go in the right direction. And that's where we are now. We're almost challenging for the title again this season. New manager coming in the summer. Hopefully plenty of transfers and we move on. But Danke, Klopp. What a 9 years it's been. It's been amazing.
It has. And I think emotional roller coaster is probably the best way that you could look at it. Colin, I'll just throw the same question to you. How are you after today? And if you could sum up how Jürgen Klopp has impacted both us and the club.
Yeah.
It's very hard to sum up 9 years in one sentence, but if you could, similar to Stu, how would you do it?
Yeah. You know, I've been scheduled on the stream now on today, all week, and I've been thinking about what I was going to try to say. And I just don't know that I have, all of the right words to sum up how thankful I am and how thankful I know we all are for his time, here with us. It has profoundly changed, like me as a supporter and as a fan, it's fundamentally changed the club itself, how it's seen, the the physical grounds of the club are totally changed, in large part because of his success, on the back of his the success that he brought. Yeah, and it just feels like just yesterday where we were watching the post match, and we had found out Brendan Rodgers had gotten the sack, and like not long after Jurgen was in, and it's gone by so fast. But I'm so grateful to have been along on this ride with all of us, to have made friends because of him. It's incredibly emotional, more so than anything that I would have ever expected. It's just really, really special.
Yeah, it's special is a really great word, and obviously, as Stu mentioned as well, an emotional roller coaster. But one thing that I seen across social medias, and I don't want to take credit for it because it wasn't me that came up with this, but the question was asked, and we asked it on Twitter as well, and I used the line when I put it on Twitter, and I'm going to use it here again. And I'll just give context behind it. When Jurgen Klopp came in, Liverpool had maybe one Champions League appearance in 6 years. Prior to him arriving, the club was on a downward trajectory. Before FSG came in, we were close to administration. FSG bought the club for just over £300 million. It's a lot of money, but in today's game, with how much the clubs are worth, that's absolutely pennies. Considering the club, that's 10% of what the club is worth now, if even. I think the club was valued at about £5 billion.
Yeah.
And it is down to ownership and a degree of what they've done, but none of that inflation of evaluation comes without massive amounts of success and eyes and commerce and eyes on the club, which weren't there. And the best line that I could use to describe Jurgen Klopp's entire tenure from October 2015 until, we just lost Colin. Bear with me 1 second. I'll get this fixed. The best way that I could describe it. Oh no, he's back. Typical Colin.
Sorry.
The best way that I could describe it of Jurgen Klopp's entire tenure from October 2015 to today was as he reminded us of who we were.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way to describe it. Liverpool were giants of both English and European football. And even on down years, early 2000s won a European Cup. 2 of them, actually, if you count 2005 in the very early 2000s. That Champions League final where it was a Steven Gerrard moment, who took a game by the throat and won us a Champions League final that we had no right to win. But it was possible because, as Jurgen Klopp described it today, Anfield was a superpower, and Liverpool fans to the Liverpool team are a superpower of football. In that 2005 Champions League final, while they were all sitting in the dressing room, the stadium in Istanbul was ringing out with "You'll Never Walk Alone." It just goes to show, and that was lost over a number of years before Klopp came in. And then all of a sudden, it was like we'd hired a Scouser. I don't know how to describe it. It was like we hired a Scouser. And this is coming from me, an Irish guy who's followed Liverpool all my life, who's seen managers come, seen managers go, sat through all those 2000s years of going into school, having my United friends banter me and say, "Oh, you lost and this and that." And essentially where United are now is where Liverpool were. We were in the midst of massive amounts of turmoil. And thankfully, this gorgeous German man just came in and saved the club. I genuinely feel that Jurgen Klopp has saved Liverpool over the past 10 years. And it took a while, but he delivered on his promise. And the best way that I could describe his tenure with us was that he reminded us of who we were. And I hope we take that energy into next season with Arne Slot and how he's going to lead us forward in the future. And I think that was very classy of Jürgen Klopp today to sing his name and demand that his name be sung from the get-go next season, because you don't find a lot of managers doing that, and that he wants to welcome him in as he was welcomed into the new season. So that's something that I'm very much looking forward to. I'm very much looking forward to this summer.
That's what's made the situation so strange in a way. You don't get this at all with managers leaving clubs. Fergie got it at United. I think Wenger got it at Arsenal. They're the only two that spring to mind that have this sort of fanfare and send off. And I totally agree with it. Like we said before we went live, Klopp showed exactly what he is about at the very end there of his speech when he announced Slot with that song. No official club announcement or anything like that, just that. And get behind him 110% ready for next season. That just shows what sort of bloke he is.
It really does. It speaks volumes of the man himself, and the fact that an entire city has basically adopted him. And John mentions a great thing here. Klopp has left us in a much better position than Ferguson or Wenger did for their clubs, and that is absolutely true. I have absolutely no doubts about that whatsoever. He 100% did leave us in a much better position. But we could go on and on and on about Jürgen Klopp and the club and everything like that, but we need to talk about the players as well that have contributed this season. And so we done our polls earlier in the season, and we wanted to get answers from you guys on how we viewed everything. So we'll get to that in a moment, but we'll get to how we voted. So we internally voted as well on who should have been players of the season, goal of the season, and young player of the season. So we'll start off with young player of the season. And what I'll do is I'll list them out, and then I list who won the vote. So for a young player of the season, we had Jarell Kwanzaa, Harvey Elliott, Ryan Gravenberch, and Connor Bradley. Young player of the season qualifies as anybody under the age 23, I believe. So that's why Ryan Gravenberch is there. If anybody's wondering, you don't even cop that the kid's only 21. Like he looks like he's so much older, but he is only 21. Very, very young player. So internally for our vote, 13 voted for Kwanzaa, Elliott got 8 votes, and Connor Bradley got 2 votes. We have christened Jarell Kwanzaa as the LFC Transfer Room Contributors Young Player of the Season, and he's had a monster season. When he came on against Newcastle, myself, we were down to 10 men. Game was 1-1. Klopp was putting an awful lot of trust in this kid who was playing League One the season previous with Bristol Rovers, and now is coming in at St James's Park, which is one of the more hostile environments in the league. Down to 10 men, games at 1-1. He could crumble or he could rise to the occasion. He really rose to the occasion. I called it on that day and I said, he looks like he's quality. He looks like he has real quality. Colin, do you think we got it right in voting for Jarell Kwanzaa as the Premier League or as our young player of the season, or would you have given it to Harvey Elliott?
I would have given it to Kwanzaa, although I think it does say volumes that it was 13-8. Did you say?
Yeah, 13-8.
That's it's not that far off. It's not as if Harvey the second and he got 2 or 3 votes. And I thought Harvey really has been phenomenal, but I think the real deciding factor in that is outcome versus expectation. We probably have higher expectations of Harvey and what we would have expected him to contribute, and not one person in any of our group, or frankly, I don't think in any group, would have foreseen Jarell being quite this good, quite this early. He's just really been sensational.
He really has. Stu, would you be in agreement with that? Paul even says here that he may have relegated Konate to a backup. Would you be in agreement with that? Do you think he's actually stepped on that much in his first season, or do you maybe think there's another season of growth behind both Konate and Virgil van Dijk before he steps into it? How would you have voted the young player of the season as well?
To be honest, I've waxed lyrical most of the season about Elliott. I think he's an absolutely phenomenal player, and he's going to be probably the future of like sort of our attacking lineup for the next 10 years if he keeps going the way he's going. But like Colin said, Quansah, I think, caught everybody off guard. Nobody expected him to pop up with such an assured performance on when he started at Newcastle or came on in Newcastle, and he hasn't looked back since, and it's deserved. I can't come. I mean, today he was brilliant. He was so composed, and what are you said? 20, 21?
21.
21. Playing like Van Dijk. Just chilled, composed, tracking back, making sure everything's cleaned up, nice and tidy. Yes, he's made a couple of mistakes this season. He's a young kid. I'm not going to hold that against him at the end of the day. He's going to learn from that. And as to what Paul said, yeah, I think Konate could actually be in a little bit of trouble. He may have lost his starting spot. I don't think it's down much to ability-wise. I think it's reliability down to Konate because of his injury issues. Again, same old story with Liverpool. We seem to be picking up players like that. But Quansah hasn't put a foot wrong, really. And touch wood, injury-wise, he's okay. So I think he's ready to go for next season. I personally do see a starting lineup with Slot as with Van Dijk and Quansah in that back line quite easily.
Yeah, I could see him starting there. I think actually the new manager coming in is a benefit to Konate because now he has a clean slate rather than the ream of performances that have just happened. But I think it's open season for and Haylor mentions here Konate has more extreme abilities than Quansah. Konate is stronger, quicker, but Quansah is smarter, more humble, and most importantly disciplined. He really, really is disciplined, and I think his only slip up this season was a bit of a wayward pass against Man United. Outside of that, I can't fault the kid. Now, we said that we were also doing a fan vote too. So with regards to the fan vote, I'm going to share it here now. So we did this on Twitter, and I want to make sure that this is the correct one. It is. I think so. It is indeed. So we shared this on Twitter as well, and this is what the fans came up with. So a little bit of a contradiction to what we've just mentioned here. Out of just over 7,000 people that voted on this, just over 51% of them had voted Harvey Elliott. So again, very similar to what you said, Stu. It's very hard to pick between the two of them.
Yeah.
Harvey Elliott obviously had your expectation. Jarell Quansah had your just breakout player. I suppose young player of the season may have been Harvey Elliott. If we had an additional category for breakout player of the season, it definitely would have been Quansah that way, if you wanted to hand out the award specifically that way. But it is just absolutely fantastic, the youth that we have in this squad, considering the three of those players, the four of those players there have the ability to become world class. Connor Bradley has that ability, Ryan Gravenberch has that ability, Jarell Quansah clearly has that ability, and Harvey Elliott has shown in bunches that he has that ability. Now, we go on to the next one, which is our player of the season. Now, of the player of the season, we had Mohamed Salah, we had Alexi McAllister, we had Trent Alexander-Arnold, and we had Virgil van Dijk. So make sure to get it in the comments who you think it would have been. And we'll go through our own contributors' vote first of all, and then we'll jump over to the fan vote that happened as well. So, Colin, I'll come to you first on this one. Who would you have given the player of the season to? And then I'll tell you the votes, and I'll ask the same as Stu in just 2 seconds as well.
This one is very split for me. I think we don't get anywhere near a title challenge without Virgil. I thought he was really exceptional again all year. Sort of turning back the clock in terms of his form, I think. So for me, I think that would have been, the way that I would have gone.
Cool. So you have Virgil down as your player of the season. Cool. Everybody gets your player in the comments for who you think was the player of the season, and we'll share it in a minute now, both the numbers from internally and the numbers from the fan vote as well. Stu, your player of the season and why? Would it have been Salah, McAllister, Trent, Virgil, or maybe even a curveball outside of that?
No, for me, it's a tough one. It's between two players. It was between McAllister and Virg for me. And my reasoning on this one is I'm going to pick McAllister because I think he has been influential going under the radar a little bit at some points in the central midfield. I mean, our midfield was horrible last season, and he's the main player that's turned it around. I didn't actually, when he first moved from Brighton, I didn't really know that much about him, to be fair. I didn't know what to expect when he came in, but for his first season, he's played an absolute blinder. And I think he thoroughly deserves to have the award of Player of the Year if he did get it. But Virg is a toss-up. It is so close. It's a bit like the old Elliott and Quansah situation. Between those two players, it's a flip of a coin at the end of the day.
It's funny you say that because it really was, especially considering both the fan vote that you're going to see in a moment and our vote. On our vote, there was 25 votes made. I lied, 23 votes made. 23 votes made on who should have been Player of the Year. 1 went to Trent, 10 went to Virgil, and 12 went to Alexi McAllister. Yeah. That's how close it was. Just over 50% of the votes went to Alexi McAllister. Now, that's internally from our own vote. Now, what we'll do is we'll share the fan vote and see if that lines up. And bear with me 1 second now. I'll share this screen and we'll jump back in. Share screen. I didn't mean to stop that. And we'll share there. As you can see, the fan vote was possibly just as split as we were. 45% of it going to Van Dijk. 45% of it going to Alexi McAllister. 42% of it going to Virgil van Dijk. 8% going to Mo Salah and 3% going to Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think if Trent didn't get injured, he would have walked away with it. Personally, with how he was playing, and then had to take basically 3 or 4 months off. But it is an interesting one because we've seen pre-injury Virgil van Dijk most of the season, maybe 1 or 2 slip-ups here and there, but that then also comes with the fact that he was playing with 3 different centre-backs all season, be it 4 if you actually include Joe Gomez as well. So you had Joe Gomez, Jarell Quansah, Ibrahima Konate, and he had Joel Matip at the start of the season too. It's for him, and then on top of that, then he had to play with another right back, and then the left back was consistently changing in and out. It was either Robbo or it was Costa Simicas, or then even was Joe Gomez beside him on his left too. So the man had a rotating cast around him all season. Personally, I would have selected Virgil van Dijk. I don't think we win as many games as we do without him. And a bit of a curveball, but maybe it's just the bias in me in saying this, but I would have put Caoimhín Kelleher as our player of the season for how he stepped up in the absence of Alisson Becker. And so many people were doom and gloom and said, that's us done, that's us out of every competition, there's no way we're going to continue. And now all of a sudden you have Caoimhín Kelleher pulling off save after save after save and essentially winning us our only silverware this season. Without Caoimhín Kelleher in those goals, if it was somebody else such as Adrian, maybe possibly Jaros or Pitaluga, I don't think we win that game. Caoimhín Kelleher won us that Carabao Cup, and I think that has flown completely under the radar of an awful lot of people, and he deserves his flowers this season. He was absolutely fantastic for the player of the season shouts, but just unfortunately, like, he played as many games as Alisson this season, which is madness. To just split the season. If you told me that we'd have to split the season between our 2 keepers and that we'd still end up in the top flight, as in like in the top 3, nearly down to the last 3 or 4 weeks, I would have bit your hand off of that. That's absolutely astonishing, especially for a keeper of his age. The kid's been here since he's been a child. He's only 24, 25. If he goes in the summer, it'll be bittersweet for me personally, because I hold him in such a high regard, and he's one of the best keepers that's ever come out of Ireland, opposite Shea Given and maybe Packy Bonner. But he has been absolutely sensational, and I don't know how he's not starting in the national team, purely only because Bazunu gets regular game time, which he hasn't been getting either lately. So I think it's on Caoimhín now to maybe, if Caoimhín says he wants to go, I'd allow it. If he doesn't even stress it, I don't think we'd even let him go. Obviously, Anissa here mentions that I don't think he'd be able to keep him in the summer. And I don't disagree with you. If he wants to go, or if a team comes in and offers 40 million, I think he's gone. I think he is worth that though. But every save that he made, I think it put his value up another couple of million. But that's our player of the season. That is Alexi McAllister, and I don't think there's many people. That could argue with that. Essentially, you're not going to see Adrian. He's gone. He's saying good luck, goodbye, God bless. He's away. He's getting 60 grand a week, not sitting on the bench. He's away.
I think a special shout out, obviously going back to the young player of the year, I think a special shout out should go to Connor Bradley.
Oh, massively.
Because when Trent got injured and nobody expected him to be out, Trent to be out for as long as he was. Yeah. And Bradley just coming in and absolutely picking up 5 or 6 assists in his first 7 or 8 games.
Yeah.
Something like that. And then just continuing going. And then obviously he had personal issues with his father dying as well.
Yeah.
But then back a couple of weeks later and then back straight into the team, like just nothing happened, so to speak. I think the club treated it the right way, but I think it also shows how mature he is at a young age to say, right, okay, I'm ready to play this first team football. Give me more chances. So between him, and I was going to mention Kelleher as well. I think Kelleher has been brilliant this season.
Yeah.
And again, I'm in the same boat. I don't particularly want to see him go, but I can understand if he does want to go. I think he would be a prime candidate as a first choice goalkeeper for one of the newly promoted teams or one of the struggling teams down at the bottom of the Prem looking to shore things up a little bit. So I
genuinely think he starts for anybody outside the top 4.
Yeah, I agree.
At the moment, yeah. I think he starts for anybody outside the top 4. There's 16 teams in the Premier League he could start for and make them better instantly. Yeah. And I would go as far to say that I think Queven Kelleher is better with the ball at his feet than Alisson Becker. He's ambidextrous on that, and he's able to
both feet. Yeah.
If anybody ever watched the game, you wouldn't be able to tell he's right-footed or how he's able to spray a pass left on his right foot. It's absolutely nuts. Which is why, and we'll get into this in a different stream, but it's why I think Premier League teams would be very, very, very well served if they set up goalkeeping academies in Ireland. Very, very, very well served. Purely from how I'm a keeper myself and how we're taught from playing Gaelic football is you need to be able to use your feet, save with your feet, and you need to be good with the ball at your feet immediately as that type of a keeper. And that instills it in you from ages 5 to 12. So it's very, 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 it's a lucrative market that could be there. And I think teams are skipping over that. You have your Brazilian players.
That's an interesting concept. I never knew that, to be fair.
You shouldn't give that idea away for free.
Yeah, patent that.
I'll email John and the boys and FSG will have me over. It'll be fine. We'll get it set up. But genuinely, how keepers are trained in Ireland is you save with your feet and your hands second. Your feet are like a second set of hands, so to speak. And instead of how you'd see a keeper dive to the floor, keepers in Ireland will stick a foot out and keep themselves upright, which then allows them to be able to save the second shot or the ricochet really, really easily, which is why Shea Given, Packy Bonner, those type of keepers have always been really good. It's because, and Kelleher as well. Kelleher likes to dive, but he also loves using his feet, and he loves saving with his feet. And you'll notice a lot of the saves that he made in that Carabao Cup final, he remained upright because he saved with his feet, and he wasn't on the floor and then had to get up, because that half a second as a keeper is life or death. And I've not played in any way, shape, or form close to the level that any of these guys have played. Semi-amateur, if you want to call it that, is the level below Sunday League. But I've won national medals and I've won provincial medals, and that's the style of keeper that's there. And so I think there's a real trick being missed with that. And Holton, the reason he didn't see Michael Edwards today is he's busy setting up Liverpool 2.0. That's exactly why. But we'll now move on to the goal of the season. So everybody get in the comments what you think goal of the season was. I'll tell you the top 5 that we had. So we had Dominic Szoboszlai against Leicester, that absolute rocket that went off the top at the crossbar. We then had Alexi McAllister against Fulham, that half volley that went straight into the top corner from way outside the box. We had Darwin Núñez against Brentford with the header off Jota and the dinky little chip over the top of the keeper, which I thought was really, really nice. We then had Trent against Fulham, his free kick. The second one, not the first one, because the first one was counted as an own goal and he only got the assist in it. But then he scored another one anyway, just to make sure of it in the second game. And then the fifth goal then was Alexi McAllister's semi-outside of the foot shot while it was rolling away from him against Sheffield very, very recently. So those are the 5 goals. So we've McAllister against Sheffield, Trent's free kick against the second game against Fulham, Núñez against Brentford where he chipped the keeper, McAllister's first goal against Fulham where he rocketed it from 35 yards out, and Dominic Szoboszlai against Leicester where he just pinged it off the top of the crossbar in the I can't remember if that was the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup that we done that in, but I think it was the Carabao Cup. So those were the choices. Of those, I have the votes here for both us and the fan vote. But Stu, I'll throw it over to yourself first. Who would you have given it to and why out of those goals of the season?
It would have been a joint winner between both of McAllister's goals. But technically, just both of those goals would have been amazing. If I had to pick between the two, I would have... Out of those two, I would say probably the Sheffield United goal sneaks it just. But both of them technically, rockets. Both of them took the net off, so can't really complain about that, to be fair.
Yeah, that's very true. And Paul, just left out the goal of the season, Harvey's against Spurs is your one. Didn't even get votes, unfortunately. Harvey's goal against Spurs didn't even get one vote. From what I can see here, I'm just going to go back up through it. Continued. Yeah, Elliott against Spurs didn't even get one vote, Paul, unfortunately, and that's in the thing. And I put in loads. This is the list. I'll give you the list of goals of how many bangers we've had this season. I had to go into 2 polls in WhatsApp. So we had Diaz against Bournemouth with his ridiculous bicycle kick in the 6-yard box. Núñez's first against Newcastle, where he was nearly outside the box and pinged it into the far bottom corner. Szoboszlai against Villa, volley from outside the box that went through about 7 players in the box. Núñez against West Ham, ball over the top on the volley into the far corner. Szoboszlai against Leicester, that one off the crossbar. Jota against Leicester, his back heel or his flick, his Rabona flick. Núñez against Bournemouth, where he got the ball cut back inside and pinged it over the keeper. McAllister against Fulham, the half volley from 35 yards out. Endo against Fulham, where Salah lays it back to him and he just pings it into the top corner again. We've had so many bangers, it's been nuts. Szoboszlai against West Ham, another screamer. Núñez against Brentford, the chip, obviously. Núñez against Sparta Praga, even further outside the box than the Bournemouth goal in the Carabao Cup, where he pinged it over that keeper. Núñez's second against Sparta Praga, where he just scored another screamer after taking a touch, letting it bounce once, volleying it and putting it past 3 players. Trent against Fulham, his free kick in the second game. Elliott against Spurs, as Paul mentioned, his goal. And Alexi McAllister against Sheffield, the outside of the boot, kind of very Gerrard-esque against Olympiacos. Those were the amount of goals that I could only think of off the top of my head, and I had to go look for others. We've had a tremendous amount of bangers this season. Colin, who would you have as the goal of the season and why?
My personal favorite is the Trent goal against City. Just he just rocked up in those white and red Predators and just after no announcement that he had switched from Under Armour, rocked up in that and scored a goal. I just just iconic stuff from him. Actually, off the list, I think the best goal is the McAllister one. He has a rock. Fulham. That Fulham game has just unbelievable goals, top to bottom. But the McAllister one against Fulham, where it just kind of fades off, is such a well struck ball. So that's mine.
That's yours. Well, yeah, that'd be for me personally. It's a hard choice. The goal that I have. I have 2. The first one is the one that I know is the right answer is Alexi McAllister against Fulham. The one in my heart that I wanted to be the goal of the season was Darwin Núñez's chip against Brentford. Just beautiful. And I would have also said Darwin Núñez's volley that he got as well. The ball played over the top by Trent just connects with the ball, doesn't touch the ground. From when it leaves Trent's foot, it doesn't touch the ground until it hits the net. Over the top, half volley, straight past the keeper. Just watched it come over his shoulder like a wide receiver catching a ball on the run and just pinged it into the far corner. It was absolutely beautiful. But we will now share what the fans thought. And just under 7,000 people voted for this. And 70%, just under 70% voted for the McAllister goal against Fulham. And as you can see, there it is in all its beauty. That is some rocket. I genuinely cannot believe that was a goal that we witnessed this season. And that outshadows Trent's free kick that was basically top bins, and Endo's absolute rocket that he pulled out of his bag from nowhere and just pinged it into the postage stamp on the top bins, like. And then Trent scored another one later on that game that won us the game and sent Anfield into absolute hysterics. That game was probably the maddest game of the season, being perfectly honest. It's it's absolutely nuts, and it was beautiful to see. It really was, because as you can see, people thought Szoboszlai against Leicester, Núñez, McAllister against Sheffield. I think this one got way too little votes in my own opinion. I think it should have been an awful lot closer. But I mean, just look at that. Just look at that. There's not a lot else that you can really say about that. That is absolutely phenomenal. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put away that saves that. No. You could put two keepers in there and they still wouldn't save that. That's absolutely nuts. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing the screen and we are going to jump back to our normality, and we'll talk a little bit about the game itself and how we think maybe we'll go ahead into the summer and where we think our priorities may lie. Paul, it got absolutely no votes. I don't know why. It was a great goal, but I just don't know.
It gets love from me because I thought it was an absolutely amazing goal. But unfortunately, when you're in a season with some absolute bangers, like we had McAllister and Endo and Zobo and
we could have gone with 5 different Darwin goals. Darwin, for his faults and any misses that he had some bangers this season. McAllister had yeah, but McAllister had them. Trent had them. Endo had a screamer into the top corner from outside the box. It's absolutely madness how many bangers of goals we got this season, and I think a lot of them were forgotten about. I completely forgot about Szoboszlai's volley against Villa, where he just pings it through 6 or 7 players and into the side netting. People forgot about the Diaz goal. Diaz scored a bicycle kick in the 6-yard box off a ricochet against Bournemouth in one of the first games of the season, and nobody even mentions that.
We only scored interesting goals this year. There were no boring goals.
Yeah, Conor Bradley even bagged a couple as well while he was at it. Jarell Kwanzaa got 2 goals. Where is it? There. Jarell Kwanzaa has 2 goals in 17 games, and Gomez still has 0. And everybody wanted Gomez to get a goal today. Jarell Kwanzaa's come out and bagged 2 goals. Fair enough, they're scratchers, but there's still 2 goals. But we will now move on to what we think will be the future. And we spent about 10-15 minutes on this before we finish up for the evening and let everybody go and cry their eyes out over Jürgen Klopp no longer being here. One thing that I do need to mention, this was mentioned by TaylorMade earlier, is that he thinks that Jürgen Klopp deserves a statue. He took us back to where we belong. I cannot wait for that statue to be unveiled, to be perfectly honest with you. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. We had a bit of a competition in the group as well, in the Twitter admins group, of what would be the best pose of Jürgen Klopp, like the iconic pose that would have been the best to encapsulate into a statue. And I think the general consensus is when he has his hand on his heart, cap, glasses, big smile, looking longingly into the eyes of the cop. I think that's probably the best one. Would you guys be in agreement of that?
I was thinking about that, but I was also thinking a bit more of maybe a bit more of an animated one, in like a sort of a striking fist pump pose like he does with the cop.
Yeah.
But either or, I think both those suggestions would pretty much be a perfect fitting for a statue for him outside Anfield. I think either one would work perfectly well.
Colin, one that was mentioned by Charlie is where it's kind of cut off at the bottom, but it's all the team's hands throwing him up in the air after the Premier League win or the Champions League win. I can't remember. So all you can see is all the hands and him in the air.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a cool one to do.
I think they'll probably want, I don't dislike that. I think they'll probably want one that is a little more boring.
Yeah.
is a little. So my answer was going to be the fist pump. Was going to be a Jurgen fist pump. The other like outside one that I could see them doing, which I just thought was really, really great, was that when they took the pictures of him just from the other day where he was up on the cop and he was there's one of him kind of facing towards the cop, leaned back, like leaning on the the railing and with his legs out. That one I thought, first of all, it's like an unbelievable picture, but I thought that might be a reasonable statue. It's like very down the line, more like he's in like a suit jacket. And then that, or the reverse of that one where he's standing at the railing, so that maybe you could take pictures with the statue or something like that. But
yeah,
I'd be happy with any of them. I think that I mean, that statue is already being planned, but I think that they'll take their time to make sure that it doesn't look like we've seen statues of famous people look over the past.
Yeah, Ronaldo.
Oh my goodness, that one. There's a joke one that they did for David Beckham where it was like purposely bad, and I was like, oh, that happens though sometimes. But I'm sure whatever they'll do will be thoroughly researched, and they'll take about 1,000 polls to try to decide what'll work.
Yeah, I think so too. To be honest, guys, I think everybody's a little bit exhausted emotionally after that day, and I think everybody needs to kind of process a lot of emotions and everything. So what we might do is we might leave it there for today, and we will be back again tomorrow from 7:30 p.m. UK time. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Anybody that's watching currently on Twitter at the moment, if you wouldn't mind, jump over to our YouTube channel. The link is in our bio on our Twitter page. Make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and make sure that you have your notification bell on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out. We are live daily from 7:30 p.m. UK time, and we have a stream for our friends across the pond in America and on American time zones called Star Stripes and Anfield Nights. It is on every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or 2 a.m. GMT UK time. So make sure that you're around for that. We have just completed a brand new Premier League season. We now move into the summer transfer window. New manager, new era. Don't be sad that it's over. Just be happy that it happened and that we were around to see it. The planet has been around for a couple of billion years, and we were lucky enough to live in the time that Jürgen Klopp has won Liverpool multiple trophies. That's the way that I look at it. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this Sunday evening. I hope everybody has a wonderful day, and I hope everybody's a wonderful rest of their weekend, wherever they are, and we will see you guys again soon. Thank you so much, and bye-bye.